And thank you so much for joining us today. Well, many people ask, how is your prayer life? But another question to think about is, how is your worship life?
I've never been asked that.
Seriously?
No.
Well, how is your worship life?
I think it's pretty good.
Okay, good. That's what we want to hear.
I'll think about it today after this program. Singer-songwriter Cleanne Bowen says any moment in life can be an opportunity for worship. It could be a Sunday morning service or a simple car ride. We have the chance to respond to God's presence.
I often get asked, how is my prayer life? But I don't often get asked, how is your worship life? One of my favorite definitions of worship is how we respond to the presence of God. Now, I'm a worship leader. I love responding to worship in the context of church, in a service. The band is going, the music is playing, or even in my house, I throw on some music and I just kind of sing out and worship Him in that context. And that's awesome. We can worship with music. But if worship is a response to His presence, that means that at any point in the day, at any point in life, we have the opportunity to respond to His presence. Psalms 139, verse 7 says, "Where shall I go from your spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence?" Literally in my notes, I have, "You're always there." And what it tells me when I read that verse, that must mean that God's presence is consistently around, and He's constantly moving, and He's constantly working. If that's true, then I have the opportunity at all times to respond. So maybe you're a parent and you're driving your kids to school. His presence is there. You have the opportunity to respond to it. Maybe you're just grocery shopping and you feel the presence of the Lord. We have the opportunity to respond to it. We have the opportunity to worship. Maybe you're at work and you're just sitting at your desk and you're like, man, God, I feel your presence. That's worship. You get to respond to it. You get to respond to what He's doing, and maybe He's speaking to you in that moment. Maybe you feel Him saying something for someone else. All of this is worship. Worship is a lifestyle. At all times, it is available. Don't limit your worship to a song. Don't limit your worship to a service. Make it a moment, a part of your day, at any second, any minute, every hour, where you respond to the presence of God, what He's doing, what He's working in and through you. Worship. How's your life of worship?
There's some great wisdom there. And you can just, she's so delighted talking about God, too, and being in His presence.
Yeah.
So in answer to your question, I think I'm doing pretty well. It doesn't mean necessarily I'm blasting worship music in the car or in the house all day long, but I hope to respond well to God's presence. It could just be reading this. I like to do that. I like to read the Psalms out loud before I start reading Scripture. That's a great way to worship.
Yeah, I love that.
I don't really like to read pre-written prayers by contemporary folks as much, but reading the Psalms of David is a great way to worship and meditate, reflect.
Oh, absolutely. And she mentions that Psalms 139 where it's talking about, where can I go from your presence? Nowhere, because God is always with us. Whether we are in a church service where you can, most times when you're in a church service, you can feel the tangible presence of God, but you can still feel the tangible presence of God listening to music in your car or silence. But yeah, I love how she just talks about the power of music and worship. Andrew, you are a musician.
I guess I'm still a musician.
And he plays the drums,
but that seems like a lifetime ago.
I guess we're waiting for the day when Andrew comes to set and he's on the drums and he's got a mic. So we're going to hold you to it.
We'll try and plan that.
I think that would be awesome.
But we have a real musician and artist in studio, which is much better to talk about.
We're very excited about this. Okay, guys. Dylan nobigdyl Phillips has been writing music since he was a kid. And now he's using that writing to spread the gospel. And he's not allowing anyone in the music industry to define him or his music.
Dylan Phillips, better known as No Big Deal, is a Christian artist and songwriter, making waves with his thought-provoking lyrics and eclectic production style. His music plays like a personal memoir, blending raw honesty with stream-of-consciousness storytelling. No Big Deal has earned major recognition, winning a Dove Award for King Jesus with KB, landing a spot on Barack Obama's 2023 summer playlist, and performing on NPR's iconic Tiny Desk series. Through both collaborations and solo projects, No Big Deal invites listeners into his journey, creating music that shines a light on hope, even in the hardest seasons of life.
All right. Well, we have No Big Dill. Dill is with us now. Dill, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're so excited to just talk to you and talk to you about your music. But first, I got to ask you, where did No Big Dill come from? Like, where did you get that name?
Yeah. So even in my name, I wanted to convey like a sense of humility and that there's a greater message than just what I got going on. So that's where the lowercase and the period stylization came
I love that. I love that. All right. Well, you've been writing music for a long time.
Yeah.
Like since you were a kid.
That's right.
Talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I come from a musical family. My favorite uncle is a jazz drummer.
Wow.
And he pretty much introduced me to like all of the music, all the musical influences. And I grew up watching him play, you know?
Yeah.
So he introduced me to hip hop really early. I wanted to be like him. So I'm rapping from a very young age.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah. And it just carried throughout my life.
Yeah,
you know?
I love that. Well, let's talk about like your walk with Jesus. I
Yeah.
mean, you came from a Christian home.
That's right.
Grew up in Tennessee. But when did faith really become your own? Because we all have to make that choice at some point in our lives.
That's right. Yeah, I think that like growing up in a Christian household, there's obviously so many benefits to that. But one of the hard things was faith being my own and it not just being a cultural thing and not just being synonymous with being a good kid or being, obedient, getting good grades and being a Christian. So for me, it really came when I went to college and I was away from family and was really tempted to find my identity in relationships and status anywhere outside of Jesus.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the rubber really met the road when I did fall into those temptations and I did fall into some of those addictions and vices. And there came a point where Jesus was like, you kind of are living two lives. You have this facade of, the good guy that everybody, oh yeah, Dylan is amazing, but you really have like all of this secret sin, this secret life, this double life.
Yep.
And yeah, you've gotten away with it. So are you going to choose to live in darkness, live that double life for the rest of your life, or are you going to choose to voluntarily bring that stuff into the light, voluntarily confess when there's no pressure to confess,
right?
But because I'm asking you to confess. And so that was the moment that it became real for me when I said, yes, I will confess this to people. I will drag this darkness into the light.
That's powerful. Well, let's talk about how you became your own artist. Like first I want to talk about, you were doing road managing for other artists.
That's right.
But then someone actually fired you. Okay, can you just talk about that?
Yes, yeah. So I started out as a merchandise manager and a road manager for Derek Minor, a legendary Christian rapper. And yeah, through him, I met a lot of people in the industry, and we were going on Winter Jam, all these different big tours together. And I was also making music like on the side. And he's such a generous person. He gave me an extra key to his studio, so I'm making music in his studio.
Yeah.
And he comes through one day and he's like, "Wait, who's this?" And I'm like, "This is me." He's like, "This is your song?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is me." And he like took note of that.
Yeah.
He set me down a few weeks later and was like, "Do you want to be a road manager all your life, or do you want to be an artist?" And I was still in the mindset of like, well, it's much safer to be on the business side than be an artist. Like, I know how risky that is, so I just want to be a manager. And he was like, "Okay, cool, you're fired." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And he was like, he's never seen somebody make it who kind of has that safety net. So he kind of had to push me out of the nest, cut that safety net.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah,
so,
obviously you are on like a trajectory of success but I love how you're so humble at the same time. And I also wanted to just get into your music. You have, I would say, like, you're a clean rapper. You're a clean hip hop rapper.
Right.
And this is, Like, for real, his songs are on my playlist. I'm not just saying that. I was so excited. I was like, no way, I get to talk to No Big Deal. Anyways,
thank you.
So very excited to talk about this because, okay, just talk about the meaning and the message behind not just your music, but then you also founded Indie Tribe, which I also love.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying with the like, you know, I just feel like a clean hip hop rapper. I think what you're getting at is like, there's kind of like a box or some baggage that comes with the term Christian rapper, where people tend to think it's corny, it's dated, it can't compete with the mainstream, right? I have no problem with the title Christian rapper. I only have a problem with that box that people tend to, that presupposition that people tend to have. And so, my music doesn't fit in that box. Like, there's people who listen to my music who they don't even necessarily know it's Christian rap. They know that I'm talking about God and faith and all of these things because I'm explicit about that. But in their head, they didn't even know, oh, this fits into this niche or whatever. And so Indie Tribe, as you mentioned, is the same way. Like, we have fans that are devout Christians, and we have fans who are just fans of hip hop music, and they love the sound and the artistry.
Yeah, and I also got to mention, I mean, you have in one song, Project Pat.
Yes.
That's so cool. Probably some people are like, I don't even know who that is.
Yes,
But that's
Project
okay.
Pat,
Yeah.
Legendary Memphis rapper. So there's a Tennessee connection, and he's a believer now, and he's like,
amazing.
He started a ministry, a prison ministry. Shout out to Project Pat.
Wow.
Yeah, he's completely different than the Project Pat that like we grew up with. So yeah, he's doing ministry now.
So cool.
Yeah.
I also love that you're really open, and honestly, I see it in your lyrics too. You really point out the hypocrisy within the church, and I think that's a really good thing that you're doing because you've also faced a lot of backlash from Christians because you guys have performed at Rolling Loud, like very non-Christian environments. Just talk about that and why that's important.
Yeah, I think, there's this idea of like separation of, secular and sacred. I understand that, and I have a great understanding of that. The thing is, if you are explicit and unashamed in the message that you're giving, and the message is glorifying Jesus and doing good to people, then I don't think there's anywhere you can't go with that message. I think people have got it twisted to where they're like, oh, you should only be in these spaces. Now, if you're gonna go in that space and compromise your message, then maybe you shouldn't be there. But if your message remains the same in the church as it does in these spaces like Rolling Loud or wherever it may be, then I think you should be there. Those people need Jesus, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about why you think your music is resonating with especially the younger generation.
I think that people, maybe more now than ever, especially the younger generation, really crave authenticity in music and in media, because so much the pendulum has swung towards like performative online, internet, social media personalities, that people are like really drawn to down to earth authenticity, people that they can relate to. And so I think relating to people comes from vulnerability, right? It's much easier for me to relate to you if I tell you my story and I'm not sanitizing it and I'm not playing the political game. I'm just telling you everything, right? And so I think that people resonate with that in the music and the art as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I also want to talk about this. Okay, so you've won fan favorite for the NPR Tiny Desk series 2 years in a row. For those who don't know about the Tiny Desk series, can you talk about that? And like, what's that meant for you guys?
Oh man, shout out to NPR. Tiny Desk is like, it's an incredible thing that NPR does where artists kind of, they come into the studio with musicians and they play like new arrangements and stripped down versions of their music. And I think like most serious musicians love Tiny Desk and would love the opportunity to be on Tiny Desk. So the contest is a way that independent artists can compete to get a full Tiny Desk set. So I've been doing that for the last 2 years, and both times I've won fan favorite. I've also got Top Shelf, which is like there's 7,500 entries, and Top Shelf is the top 50. So both years I've got that and the fan favorite as well.
Oh my God.
So we're trying to move towards a full Tiny Desk set. That's the full goal.
Yeah, we're gonna believe and hope and pray for that. Absolutely. Well, okay, talk about your podcast. It's called Creative Control.
Creative Control, the intersection of creativity and faith. So I think there was a hole in Christian media for kind of like a relaxed podcast where Christians could talk about creativity and how it intersects with faith. I think there's a lot of incredible Christian podcasts and media that's very theological, it's very serious, and it has like a tone of like academic, serious tone, but there wasn't anything that's like kind of more relaxed and laid back from the creativity perspective.
Right, for creatives.
Yeah. And so that's what we do at Creative Control.
I love that. Well, what's on the horizon for you? Like, what's coming up? What can we look forward to?
Yeah, really excited about Holy Smoke, which is an independent Christian hip hop festival that we own in
amazing.
in Nashville, Tennessee. It's the really the first and biggest of its kind. It's artist owned and operated, so that makes it like very different. And this is our 5th year this year. It's at Rocketown in Nashville, and we're very excited. People come from all over the world to be a part of the community at Holy Smoke. So
that's amazing. I love the name too, Holy Smoke.
Yeah, Holy Smoke. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, last question. If people are watching, young, old, somewhere in between, who have always felt this desire to make music, or they are an artist or a creative in some form or fashion, like what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I think that the first thing is to really deepen and develop your relationship with Jesus Christ, because God is the first and the greatest creative. A lot of times we don't think of him that way, but everything that has been created was created by God through and for Jesus Christ, so seek him. He's going to show you what your craft is, give you a message, give you a people to get that message to. That's the number one thing. And then be diligent and humble and obedient in that calling that he gives you.
Amen. Man, I wish we could talk for hours, but Dill, thank you so much for being here. I just bless everything that you're doing. I just think it's going to just keep getting better, and the best is yet to come. So thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, to find out more about his podcast, Creative Control, and his music, go to dilly.com, or of course, go to any of your favorite streaming platforms to check it out. And I highly recommend you check out his music. Andrew?
Cannon had a promising future as a rapper. He had a record deal, 2 hit albums, and was touring the country with Lecrae. And then Cannon nearly lost it all, simply because he was trying to help someone out on the highway.
I dropped 35 feet from the highway. I survived it, but my jaw was shattered, my ankle was shattered, and I could not move. Growing up in the church, my grandfather was my pastor. For me, church always felt like family. However, when you grow up with your family in church, sometimes your relationship with God versus your relationship with church and church family can get skewed sometimes. My relationship with the Lord became a lot more focused when I began to see that my relationship with God has nothing to do with anyone else. But that really didn't happen until I started switching churches. I went from going to my grandfather's church to another church, and it was a hip-hop church. The moment I realized hip-hop was for me was when I realized I could rap. People don't know, my sister was my first inspiration to be an artist. When I saw that she could rap, I was like, oh, now if Tracy can do this, come on now, I can do this.
Ain't got time for no quitters. I've been in it cause it sound good. I've been doing this since childhood. I'm just doing what the wild should fit in my position just like the crown would.
It was difficult to find the balance between being a part of the world but not of it, and still listening to God and pursuing God. I went to a Christian college where you had a lot of people that really weren't living that lifestyle. Well, this was that moment where you could stick out and say, you know what? I'm going to actually live that lifestyle that God has called me to, despite what people do around me. When I met Lecrae, we really started to get into discipleship together. I got a chance to see him off stage, on stage, and seeing him on stage allowed me to see how you manage a career as a rap artist, but more so as a Christian rap artist. Touring with Lecrae, you can sometimes feel that you might be in the shadow of another person just because you are constantly seeing them in a great light. You see them on stage in front of thousands of people. They know their lyrics, they know his songs from from point A to point B. They know his career, his life. They're inspired by this person. And then you're right next to that guy. I struggle with self-doubt and identity a lot of times, and still do. You know, I'm a firm believer that, you know, God may deliver you from some things, but he may also allow you to continue to wrestle with them for the rest of your life for a reason. And that may be for you to depend on him even more. I think literally the enemy knows the power that God has given you. I think he really knows what you could do. And I think he utilizes self-doubt, utilizes insecurities. He utilizes that against you. By the time I'm 25, I got married. And I had just got married. You have the time when you get on your honeymoon and then you get back to work. I get back to performing. After the show, we went to go on our way to go eat. And on our way, there was this truck flipped over. And I see these guys just kind of hanging from their seatbelts. And I'm like, I gotta go help them. We're in the middle of the highway at night. Cars might not even realize we've stopped. We could get hit by a car standing in the middle of the highway. And I kicked the back window open, kind of like a movie, and just like, and my adrenaline's just pumping. Someone around the vehicle said they saw sparks and gasoline, and then everybody started to panic. And as they panicked, we all just kind of fled. I'm gonna jump over this median, and I'm gonna take cover on the other side of the highway. I dropped 35 feet from the highway. And the only thing I can remember when I did took that leap was there was like this gush of wind that pushed me. That was the Lord. Because below me was a construction site. There was nothing but boulders and tree stumps staked out of the ground. If I landed on any of that, I would have died. I survived it, but my jaw was shattered. My mouth is wired shut. I'm having night terrors. I'm throwing up in the middle of the night with my mouth wired shut. My ankle is like just destroyed. I got this asphyxiator cast on. I got metal rods and everything in my leg. I could not move.
I woke up on my deathbed. I'm stretched wide on that stretcher. Got a wife at home, plus company on, plus labor known, and that's pressure.
I'm laying in my hospital bed. I'm looking on my phone. I'm seeing stories written about me. They're saying Cannon's a hero. Cannon saved a man from his truck. And I'm looking at myself like just like discouraged. I was not no hero. I didn't save nobody. In fact, the moment that we got scared, I ran away. Jesus would have stayed, and I just feel beat up. The only thing I could do was really just pray and read my word. After the accident, there was a shift. I had already been performing full-time at that point as an artist, as a Christian hip-hop artist. And the people knew me to make fun music, party music for Christians. But it got to a point where I thought about, man, if I died that night, what will people know me for? Are people better in this world because of me? God really dealt with me. He looked at me and he said, man, I got more for you. That's why you're still here. And so I can't worry about who I am or who I'm not. I have to walk into who God is calling me to. I knew my content needed to change. Not that I took the fun out, but I had to live with the reality that my last dying words could either be one that can be life-changing or it can be one that just is fun. And I wanted to change lives. I wanted to impact the world. So I knew I had to change what I was saying to the world. I've had to learn to hear God's voice louder than the other voices in my head saying you're not enough.
See, I gotta be grateful. 2015, 2014, 2013. I carry my job and none of me know like using everything. I gotta be grateful.
The accident allowed me to not so much focus on my identity or being worried about what people think about me, not being worried about living in someone else's shadow, but living in the way that He set out for me, living in the identity that He has crafted for me. My voice is utilized to show that you are more than what you say you are. You are called to be more than what you think you are. I had to learn this is not a place for fame. This is a place for worship. This is a place to point people back to God. And so my goal isn't, like I said, to be famous. It's to be faithful. Because when I'm faithful, God utilizes that faithfulness to change lives around me.
Thanks, Cam. What a journey, especially that whole thing with his accident and how it set him back. But then he's a Christian artist, But then he says God was calling me to more. I had to change my message. Just the fact that he responded to God's call so obediently is incredible.
And I love, I mean, gosh, there were so many nuggets, just what he was saying and talking about. But one of the things that I actually wrote down was that he was like, you know, do I want my music to be life-changing, or do I just want my music to be fun? And obviously he made the decision, no, I feel like I'm called to make music that's actually going to change something. Yeah, sure, fun music, there's a place for that. But for Christians, I think it's just a little bit different. You know, everything we do, whether we are musicians, whether we're a rap artist, whether we're TV hosts, or whatever you're doing, we're supposed to be doing to the glory of God. So, and to spread the message of the gospel, hopefully.
And something else for all of us, he talked about whose voice am I listening to, whose voice is the loudest. That's so key for us, isn't it? With so much out there to distract us. And we talked earlier at the start of this program about worship. Part of worship is just trying to hear the voice of God, right? And making the time to do so. That's something God's been speaking to me about when I listen, which is spend more time with me.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah, and you know, our whole lives are worship to the Lord. Everything that we do, everything that we say, our whole being. I mean, God created us out of his glory, so.
And sometimes what we're not doing, when we make the decision, I'm going to be obedient to what God is calling me to and not to do, when you're pushing away the things of the world, that's a form of worship too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for joining us today. Here's a word from the Psalms. My mouth is filled with your praise, declaring your splendor all day long. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow.